There are some stories buried in the past that feel less like history and more like the echo of something we were never meant to understand. Legends that exist in the space between folklore and truth. The space where our world begins to bleed into something else. One of the oldest of these stories began nearly 900 years ago in a quiet English village known as Woolpit. And it began with two children wandering out of the darkness of a pit in the ground. Two children with skin the color of green. This is the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, an encounter so strange, so unsettling, that even today historians can't agree on whether it's folklore, a misinterpreted tragedy, or a genuine case of something unexplainable. Part 1. The Discovery. The year was sometime in the mid-11th century, a period of English history marked by famine, war, and political turmoil. Most villages were isolated, deeply superstitious, and cut off from the world around them, and yet, out of the ground itself, that isolation was interrupted. According to the earliest accounts, villagers working near an old wolf pit, deep, steep-sided traps carved into the ground, noticed movement inside. At first, they assumed an animal had fallen in. But what they found was nothing like an animal. Inside the pit were two young children, a boy and a girl, both wearing strange, unfamiliar clothing made from materials the villagers didn't recognize, and their skin was a deep, unnatural shade of green. They spoke to the children, but the children responded in a language no one in Woolpit had ever heard, a language that resembled no dialect spoken anywhere in England. And as the villagers reached down to pull them out of the pit, they realized the children were starving. But what they would and would not eat only deepened the mystery. Part 2. The Adjustment. The villagers brought the children to the home of Sir Richard de Caen, a local landowner who attempted to care for them. Food was brought, bread, meat, fruit, vegetables. But the children refused everything. Days passed, and they continued to grow weaker. They cried, they begged, though no one understood the words, and they pushed away every bit of food offered to them. Until someone brought raw beans, still in their pods. The children grabbed at the beans desperately, tearing open the stalks, eating them immediately. According to the accounts, they ate them ravenously. For the first time, they smiled, but their relief didn't last. The boy, the younger of the two, became sick shortly afterward. Some versions claim he never adjusted to the new food. Others say he grew depressed as the strange world around him became overwhelming. Whatever the reason, he died not long after arriving in Woolpit. The girl, however, survived, and over the weeks and months that followed, the green tone of her skin slowly began to fade, until eventually she looked almost like any other child in the village. Almost. Because her past and the world she claimed to have come from was anything but ordinary. Part 3. The Confession. As the girl learned to speak English, villagers began asking her questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? How had she and her brother ended up in a pit, in a village no one from her world had ever seen? Her answers were unsettling. They were also strangely consistent. She said she and her brother came from a place she called St. Martin's Land, a place where everything was green, a place where the sun never shone like it did in Woolpit, a world lit only by a kind of twilight, a half-light. She described rivers and forests, and a tall, bright land visible far away, separated by a great river or barrier, a place the people in her world could see, but never reach. And then she explained how she and her brother arrived in Woolpit. According to her, they were tending their father's livestock when they heard a loud, strange noise, something like the ringing of a great bell. They followed it into a cavern, a dark, twisting space beneath the earth. The girl said they walked through the darkness for a long time. When they finally emerged, they were standing in a blinding, unfamiliar landscape, surrounded by a sunlight they had never seen before. Confused, they wandered into the wolf pit, and they never found the way back. Part 4. Theories and Explanations. Historians have been debating the Green Children for centuries. Some believe the story is partially true, a real event exaggerated by time. Others believe it is metaphor or early science fiction, or even a supernatural encounter. Today, there are 4 major theories. The first theory is that the children were Flemish orphans, refugees displaced during the civil conflicts of the era. Their green skin may have been caused by malnutrition, possibly a condition like green sickness, which gives a faint greenish pallor. But this explanation fails to address the language, the strange clothing, and especially the children emerging out of a pit in an area where no nearby Flemish community existed. The second theory suggests the entire story is allegorical, a moral fable about the dangers of isolation or the trauma of cultural displacement. But the story's details, and the fact that 2 independent chroniclers documented it decades apart, make it feel rooted in something real. The third theory edges closer to the paranormal. Some suggest the children came from a subterranean civilization, a world beneath our own, hidden from history, a concept that appears in folklore worldwide. And the fourth theory is that the children were never human. Their color, their language, their disorientation in sunlight, their description of a dim world parallel to ours. Some believe the Green Children of Woolpit were beings from another realm entirely, not extraterrestrial, but interdimensional, lost not across space, but across the thin boundary between worlds, a boundary they crossed by accident. Part 5. The Girl's Life. After adjusting to life in Woolpit, the girl grew up. She learned English. She was baptized. She eventually married a man from King's Lynn, and records suggest she lived an ordinary human life from that point on. But even as an adult, she never changed her story. She never recanted the existence of St. Martin's Land. She never offered a more logical explanation. She never claimed hallucination or confusion. To her dying day, she insisted she was telling the truth. Part 6. The Implication. If the story is real, even partially, then it implies something disturbing. A world existed parallel to ours. A world accessible from beneath the earth, through tunnels or caverns we no longer recognize. A world close enough for 2 children to stumble through the boundary, yet far enough that no one else ever found it. But what's even more unsettling is that the girl claimed her people could see our world. They could see our light. They could see us, but they could never reach us, except on that one day, 2 children slipped through, ending the cold close. The Green Children of Woolpit remain one of the oldest unsolved cases in English history, a story without a beginning and without an ending. Because if her world was real, if the boundary between here and there was truly that thin, then the question isn't how the children entered our world. The question is, how many times it's happened since, and whether anyone else has slipped through unnoticed, lost, alone, searching for a son they've never seen. Subscribe for daily creepy content.